MCP is not encountering resistance despite its success. It is encountering resistance precisely because of its success. When a technology really works, it stops being treated like a demo, and it starts to be judged on the only thing that matters: control. That's what's happening with MCP, Model Context Protocol. In just over a year, it has become the common language with which artificial intelligence models communicate with tools, data, and systems. It is everywhere. In developer tools, prototypes, and experimentation workflows. Yet, just as adoption is accelerating, companies are doing the opposite of what one would expect. They are not exposing it. They are closing it off. They mediate it behind increasingly rigorous layers of control. Contradiction? Only if you look at MCP through the wrong lens. A year of MCP, looking at the facts in November 2024, Anthropic presented the Model Context Protocol, describing it as the USB-C of AI, an open standard for connecting models and tools without custom integrations. https www.anthropic.com, news model context. Protocol in March 2025. OpenAI officially adopts it. Google follows shortly after. By the end of 2025, MCP SDKs exceed 97 million monthly downloads. Then comes the signal that really matters. In January 2026, Microsoft disables MCP by default in enterprise environments. GitHub Copilot requires centrally approved authorization lists. Salesforce keeps MCP only in pilot mode, with continuous monitoring. The most widely used protocol in modern AI is also the one that companies least want to leave exposed in production. This is not a warning sign. It is typical behavior for an organization when a technology ceases to be experimental and starts to really matter. It's not an accident. It's a rational and predictable reaction to a technology that has stopped being optional. Fabio Lauria, CEO and founder. Elect. The level that really makes the difference in practice. It defines how the model can ask the system to do something, read a file, query a database, call an API, without custom integrations. That's what makes it so powerful. Once adopted, tools become immediately accessible to AI agents, and that's also why companies have started treating it with extreme caution. What big companies really do with MCP, spoiler, not what you think. The adoption numbers are impressive. The way MCP is released into production is much more cautious. Bloomberg, speed. Yes, exposure. No, Bloomberg has stated that it has reduced time to production from days to minutes, thanks to MCP, but not by exposing MCP. It has built an internal mediation layer that translates, validates, and controls every call. The result is a system in which agents and tools collaborate freely, but under total control. Amazon MCP as an adapter, not as a surface. Amazon says, quoted by the Pragmatic Engineer, that most internal tools have added MCP support. https blogpragmaticengineer.com, Amazon internal tools. The key detail is another. Amazon has been API first for over 20 years. MCP does not replace APIs. It translates them. Security was not added later. It was already part of the infrastructure. Microsoft, the most honest signal GitHub Copilot business in enterprise, make MCP. Disabled by default, only activatable with explicit rules governed by organizational allow lists. In an official discussion on GitHub, one comment summarizes the position. MCP servers are too dangerous to be released at an organizational level without strict controls. Unknown user. The pattern is always the same. MCP lives inside. It is never directly exposed. The data that explains why here, the picture becomes less emotional and clearer. A 2025 academic study analyzed 1899 open source MCP servers, 7.2% with generic security vulnerabilities, 5.5% vulnerable to MCP-specific tool poisoning, 66% with code defects. https /arxiv.org ABS 2506.13538A. Second study showed that an LLM can be induced via MCP2, execute malicious code, steal credentials, gain remote control over connected systems. https arxiv.org ABS 2504. 0376 independent scans. Gnostic /security then found thousands of MCP servers without authentication with excessive permissions exposed on internal and public networks. The data that matters for decision makers, only 28% of Fortune 500 companies have MCP in production. 75% use it behind gateways, audits, and data loss prevention rules. Gartner puts it diplomatically. By 2026, 75% of API gateway providers will include MCP features. HTTPS, www.gartner.com, and articles, API gateway trends, meaning the control infrastructure is arriving now. The truth that the industry is now realizing MCP is not an application standard like HTTP or OAuth. It is an infrastructure layer. The problem is not that MCP is immature. The problem is that it has been judged as if it should be exposed, when in fact it was created to be mediated. It is a classic category error. 3 realistic ways in which MCP is used today. 1. MCP as a secure operations center. In enterprises, MCP lives behind API gateway firewalls and IP filters, automatic rules on sensitive data, mandatory logging of every call. Microsoft Copilot Studio makes it explicit. MCP is only accessible through governed connectors, HTTPS, justlearn.microsoft.com, and Microsoft Copilot Studio 2. MCP as a personal lab. The 97 million downloads are not corporate releases. They are developers using MCP locally on Claude Desktop, Cursor, VS Code. It is secure precisely because it does not touch production. This explains the paradox. Very fast on laptops, very slow in data centers. MCP dual track, the near future. Open prototypes for experimentation. Secure production for release. Private registries, centralized governance, clear separation of layers. This is the model that is emerging for 2026. Why at Electi we treat MCP as infrastructure, not magic at Elect. We work with European SMEs that want to use AI without turning it into an operational risk. That's why MCP is not a feature to be sold. It is a layer to be governed. When we integrate data and tools, MCP lives in the backend behind controlled APIs with limited scopes and complete tracking. The customer sees analysis, not protocols. This is not excessive caution. It is the lesson that emerges from observing what Bloomberg and Amazon do, not what demos promise. 3 concrete steps, not wait and see. DM wants to experiment now, but within the right perimeter. Use MCP locally to understand its potential without risk. Build governance before integrating tool registry, logging, sensitive data blocking. Without this, MCP does not go into production. If you build AI products, always separate the layers: internal MCP for speed, external API for control. The verdict: MCP is not immature. It is a technology that arrived before the infrastructure that makes it governable. The right question for 2026 is not, is MCP mature? But what layer of MCP are we ready to control? Because the future of enterprise AI will not be all open via MCP, but all controlled via mediated MCP. This is not an opinion. It is what happens when a technology becomes useful enough that it can no longer be ignored and enters real systems. MCP cannot be stopped. We can only decide how it enters corporate systems, where it passes, and who governs it. And it is on these decisions, not on adoption itself, that the difference between experimentation and production is played out. Fabio, Laurea CEO and founder, Electing Sorrel sources, and further reading official MCP repository, GitHub, MCP Safety Scanner, open source tool, Gnostic report on exposed MCP servers, /security MCP exposure report, Xenos, MCP enterprise adoption report, Linux Foundation, MCP governance, July 2025. Welcome to the Electe newsletter. This newsletter explores the fascinating world of artificial intelligence, explaining how it is transforming the way we live and work. We share engaging stories and surprising discoveries about AI, from the most creative applications to new emerging tools, right up to the impact these changes have on our daily lives. You don't need to be a tech expert. Through clear language and concrete examples, we transform complex concepts into compelling stories. Whether you're interested in the latest AI discoveries, the most surprising innovations, or simply want to stay up to date on technology trends, this newsletter will guide you through the wonders of artificial intelligence. It's like having a curious and passionate guide who takes you on a weekly journey to discover the most interesting and unexpected developments in the world of AI, told in an engaging way that is accessible to everyone. Sign up now to access the complete newsletter archive. Join a community of curious minds and explorers of the future. Subscribe now.